Hello, welcome back to the Underhand Free Throw. I am Simon, and today me and Ian are going to be talking about our second to last of our contending teams. We've been doing a whole little mini-series on all of our contending teams for the NBA this season. The previous 4 videos are up on the channel already, but today we're going to be talking about the Memphis Grizzlies, a team that I am really high on this season for contending for the title. Ian is high on them as well, but not quite as much as me. But yeah, we'll get into that in this video. Let's talk about the Memphis Grizzlies.
I mean, speaking of that, I have a guess of who your second team is.
Okay, go ahead.
Is it the Memphis Grizzlies?
It is the Memphis Grizzlies, yeah.
If we're going to talk about teams that win the possession battle.
Well, we'll have to deal with your Memphis Grizzlies slander during this segment.
I don't... Honestly, the Memphis Grizzlies are the team that I knew the least to do with. Like, I really just, I felt really comfortable sliding them anywhere from second to sixth, where I was looking at them versus the Brooklyn Nets. And as we're talking about the Pelicans, I'm like, it's hard to really say the Pelicans are better than the Grizzlies, but the Grizzlies are a very interesting team. I think I've got things to say about them. What are your initial thoughts about the Grizzlies and why you have them all the way up here at 2?
Well, they're unconventional, and I think
best defense in the league, by the way. Go without saying, that's the number one reason to have them at the top is that they are the best defense in the NBA, and that's despite playing the first 15 games or 20 games without Jaren Jackson Jr., the best defensive presence in the NBA,
or Desmond Bane, their second best offensive player, who was injured to start the season, then had a really slow start for a while, but has been really awesome as of late. And is a big reason why I have them as a contender. So obviously, should come as no surprise, they're my favorite team to come out of the West as of right now, and they are really great at winning all of the margins, the little things. Offensive rebounding, transition offense, steals, not turning the ball over, and they don't foul very much, which I think is interesting because that's always the main flaw listed for Jaren Jackson Jr., right?
Well, it's because he doesn't foul too much anymore. That does it all on his own. He just stopped being a fouling monster. And I don't think I feel like the average NBA fan will be like, oh, he fouls less. I guess that's good. I don't really care. Jaren Jackson Jr.'s foul numbers versus his block numbers were I don't know if you're actually a good NBA player because and they flipped so hard that now we're looking at one of the so far the best shot blocking season of all time in terms of just block percentage, and a just totally average foul rate.
I was going to say it's huge as well because Jaren Jackson fouling less means he's not playing 26 minutes per game for you in the playoffs. He's playing 33, 34, 35 minutes a game for you.
An important player, the center of a defense or an offense that completely eliminates their biggest weakness is it's just what if LeBron James was just shooting 40% on pull-up threes or something in his prime. That's obviously that might be a bigger gain, but it can't be understated how important this is for Memphis, and it makes perfect sense why they're now the best defensive team in the NBA. That's the difference it makes. Jaren Jackson Jr. fouling a ton means Memphis is okay, pretty good defense. Memphis, Jaren Jackson Jr. not fouling a ton, they're the best defense in the NBA. And they're the best defense in the NBA, by an increasingly comfortable margin. They're starting to leave other teams in the dust.
Yeah. And that is huge, and then also just the fact that you don't have to play these Brandon Clark, Steven Adams combinations, or you don't have to put Xavier Tillman into a playoff game. I think that's really important as well.
Santi Aldama.
Santi Aldama's been solid this season. He really helped Memphis stay afloat while Jaren Jackson Jr. was recovering from his offseason surgery earlier on.
Well, remember when we were talking about Memphis, in the season predictions and stuff like that, we were Memphis might disappoint this season because who's going to play the 4? And we were listing the players, we mentioned Santi Aldama, we mentioned Conchar, and all these guys that were going to fill minutes at the 4. This might sink the Grizzlies or at least start them from a big disadvantage. And Santi Aldama just came in and provided the things he provides with his game in terms of his just like size and shooting that allowed them to like not have a bad beginning of the season, which is why they're now second in the West.
Yeah, and the biggest reason why I'm going to have the Grizzlies as my favorite team to come out of the West, I think it is Jaren Jackson's improvement this season, just at staying on the floor and being an even better defender than he was already an awesome defender last year, right? You can make an argument that if he just didn't foul so much and if he played the whole season, he might have won Defensive Player of the Year last year because of like how massive his impact was when he was on the floor, and he's even better this year. But I think on top of all that, Desmond Bane continues to develop, which is just crazy because this guy came into the league as, I think he was 23. He was a 4-year player at TCU. 22 or 23, like older rookie, right? And the adage with older rookies is like, oh, there's not as much upside, but Desmond Bane has already shown more upside in his first couple of seasons in the NBA than most 18-year-olds ever get to. So,
yeah,
which has been crazy. But he continues to develop as a playmaker. When Ja Morant goes to the bench, Desmond Bane is running the offense, and it's actually been really effective. He's shooting a disgusting percentage on off the dribble threes this year. He's like over 40% still.
Yeah.
And I think if he was playing this way for the whole, and this is, you got to keep into account, he's played less than 30 games. He's only been playing at this level for like 15 or so games. It's kind of a tiny portion of the whole season. If he had been playing this way the whole year, I think he would have, been an all-star this season.
Yeah, and I think with a lot of, again, like the average NBA fan might not just understand how good Bane is and how good Tripp is. Like, that's just like two, like, those guys are both in the, like, they both might be top 20 players this year. Like they might, like they're in that conversation. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. definitely is. And Bane's probably kind of getting in there once you depending on how much you want to punish him for the injury. So you're talking about a team that might have 3 legitimate stars, where I feel like people are just kind of catching up to the idea of those 2 guys as stars. But, if a big playoff showing will put that more firmly in people's minds. Can I tell you some of the reasons why I doubt the Grizzlies? Why they
Ja Morant's lack of shooting development?
No.
I'm just trying to think of random weaknesses. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, that figures into it, but overall this is a very weak shooting team. That's one of the first things to say about it. Like they're bottom 6 for effective field goal percentage. They don't actually convert very well at the rim, despite being one of the better rim pressure teams in the league. They're 22nd in shooting efficiency at the rim. They're 19th in shooting efficiency for mid-range. They're 21st from effective 3-point field goal percentage. Like you guys don't actually score it efficiently from anywhere. And then take Desmond Bane off the floor, and this becomes the worst 3-point shooting team in the league. Take Jaren Jackson Jr. off the floor, this team's not very good defensively. So despite the fact that the Grizzlies, they've got this, the Grizzlies have an identity, more so than almost any other team in the league. They go super hard at the rim. They try to win the possession battle. Everyone on their team is like empowered to be super, like Dylan Brooks is just allowed to attack whenever he feels like it. Shout out Dylan Brooks' defense, though. He's way better defense than I ever thought he would be with those short, stubby little arms. He's just like a monster defender this year, one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA.
Yep.
So the collective rim pressure, like, when people are just like, why are they fine when Ja Morant gets injured going back to last year? It's like, well, because everyone can chip in and give that rim pressure that Ja Morant is like legendary for. Like Ja Morant's the best rim pressure guard we've seen. I don't like maybe ever. I don't know. He's one of the best rim pressure guards ever
since prime Westbrook. Yeah, at least.
Yeah, I was thinking like Westbrook, Rose. I'm just like, but I don't know. Ja Morant might be like a bigger source of rim pressure than those guys. Like, because he goes to the pull up a little bit less. But they've got this triangle of players, the 3 stars that I mentioned, and you take one of those guys off the floor, all of a sudden there's this fundamental flaw. In the regular season, that's masked by this like smash mouth Memphis style of basketball. In the playoffs, I think that's something to attack. Like, Tripp goes to the bench and all of a sudden there's like they're bleeding points. Bane goes to the bench and all of a sudden the team can't shoot and they're clogging the paint against Morant drives. Like I just see ways to chip away at what this team does really well. And I feel they are, despite them having like this like deep, interesting roster of a lot of good guys who do a lot of interesting things, like they're kind of missing one more rock rotation piece in that starting lineup.
Yeah.
That either it's a defensive piece that helps them to survive Jaren Jackson Jr. being on the bench, or it's a shooter that helps them survive when Bane is out there. But I just feel like they're kind of always rearranging deck chairs in a way that they're not going to get punished for in the regular season. But in the playoffs, if I'm a coach being like, oh, I know that you guys suck at this when this guy just went to the bench and I'm gonna punish you for it as much as I possibly can. It just seems like I see these kind of revolving holes on the Grizzlies roster that I think a good opponent will be able to take advantage of in a way that will be sort of surprising to the Grizzlies and throw off a lot of what they do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that there are definitely exploitable flaws. I guess I feel like they're less exploitable than the flaws of some of these other teams out west. But I would feel more comfortable about the Grizzlies if they did make a trade for
a
guy.
Well, OG Anno. But they're the team that has the goods to get it done. I don't know if Toronto's ever going to trade OG Anunoby, but like Memphis has got Memphis can give up the picks.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah,
like
but
they can get on the phone right now and do it.
Do the Raptors want Memphis picks, or
maybe not?
Do they want something a little juicier? Yeah.
Well, but they don't just have Memphis picks, right? They got don't they have an extra pick? They got someone's pick. Or am I mistaking that? Am I thinking the Pelicans, the Lakers? Anyways.
Yeah, it's protected though. Like the Raptors are going to want like unprotected picks from a team that has like at least somewhat of an uncertain future.
Yeah. I just feel like that's a team with real assets. Like Memphis is a team with real assets. If there's a contender that could get OG Anunoby, like that's probably it. If I was the Raptors, I wouldn't give up OG Anunoby. I think he's one of the more valuable players in the NBA. I think like if Toronto didn't suck this year, he would be an all-star. But it's just like obviously if you're Memphis or you're Cleveland and you don't really have any big wings, the idea of adding that is just it's pretty exciting. But
of course, the Memphis Grizzlies are just one of several contenders we've talked about so far, so go ahead and click here, and you'll be directed towards another video where we're talking about another one of our teams that we view as contenders this season. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on the Underhand Free Throw.